Hey guys, it's Chris. From legendary comic books to medieval items to loads of cash and more, join me as I show you 9 treasures found in the attic. Number 9. Action Comics Number 1. A couple once didn't have enough money to pay the bank for their home, and thus they were going to lose it. As they were cleaning out the attic, they came across some boxes that they didn't realize were there. They searched them to see what was inside, and when they did, they found something they didn't expect: a comic book. But not just any comic book, it was Action Comics Number 1. So what's so special about this comic? It's the first comic to ever feature Superman. So the comic was from the literal golden age of comics, as well as the first true superhero comic. For the record, because no one knew the legacy that Superman would have, Action Comics is still going today, and has passed 1,000 issues, few kept their copies. As such, only 100 or so well-kept copies are said to be around today, including one that was formerly owned by the actor Nicolas Cage. The condition of the one they found was top-notch, and because of that, they were able to sell it for around $1.5 million, saving their home and their lives, all thanks to Superman. Anyone else feeling a little bit jealous right now? Number 8. Medieval Artifacts. A very recent attic find happened in August of 2020, when archaeologists were allowed to be in Oxburgh Hall, a 15th-century manor in Norfolk, England during the pandemic. A restoration and repair project had been going on there for the last several months. Enter Matt Champion, an archaeologist who was on the site when the restorations and repairs were happening, and allowed to look at the manor's attic when it came time for that part of the repairing. As he explored the foundations of the attic, he found a rat's nest that happened to have pages of music, as well as textiles that were quite unusual. But construction workers found perhaps the most valuable items: a copy of the King's Psalms from 1568, and an intact page from a rare 15th century illuminated manuscript. Little is known about the editions of the King's Psalms, as there is only one other known copy. The piece of parchment was discovered nearly intact in the building's eaves, its gold leaf and blue illumination still vibrant, making it not just a rare find but a miracle find considering where it was stored away for so long. According to Anna Forrest, the National Trust curator who's overseeing the work, the use of blue and gold for the minor initials rather than the more standard blue and red shows this would have been quite an expensive book to produce. It is tantalizing to think that this could be a remnant of a splendid manuscript, and we can't help but wonder if it belonged to Sir Edmund Bedingfield, the builder of Oxburgh Hall. It's a very curious thing indeed, something that will fuel people like Matt Champion to search other manors like this one because of what might be found. Have you checked your attic lately? What about your grandparents' attic? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Number 7. Hitler's collection of music. It's honestly a bit hard to talk about the man known as Adolf Hitler, and for a wide variety of reasons, but we're not focusing on his actions during his reign. Rather, we're talking about something found after the events of World War II officially ending. You see, the Russians made it to Berlin first and put the pressure on the Germans to surrender, which they did. When raiding certain bases of the Germans, one Russian officer went into the bunker of one of the bases and found something rather surprising: a large collection that belonged to Hitler. The officer, Lou Besyamensky, stole the records and safeguarded them until he could hide them in his attic in Moscow. To be clear, he didn't steal them to make a profit or just take something of Hitler's. Rather, he did it because he loved music, and he didn't want them to be destroyed in the fervor he knew was to come. So thus he hid them, and when he died, his daughter found them and told the world about the discovery, which revealed a lot of things about Hitler himself. For example, you might think that him being all about his superior race, that Hitler would only be listening to classic German music, but you'd be wrong. Rather, he listened to a variety of things, including Jewish and Russian tracks that were deemed by his party to be subhuman. Clearly, he disagreed. While this doesn't change what Hitler did, it does alter certain things about our knowledge of him, including how he had a deep love of music. Number 6. Russian Figurine. It's not too much of a stretch to think that people put certain toys and items of value in their attic, but to find a figurine of Russian make that is worth $5.2 million? Well, that's another story entirely. The rare Fabergé figure commissioned by Russian Tsar Nicholas II in 1912 and given to his wife Empress Alexandra was discovered hidden in the Rhinebeck loft attic in 2013. It was later put up for auction that did indeed have it sold for $5.2 million. Now you might be curious as to why this figurine is so important to cost that much. The first is that it was a Fabergé figure, which is rare in and of itself. You might recall the legendary Fabergé eggs that are also quite valuable. The other thing is that there were only 50 of these kinds of figurines ever made. Given that it's been over 100 years, there are likely not much of them left. So thus, the less of something there is, the rarer it becomes. And finally, it honestly wasn't supposed to sell for that much at auction. It was about $800,000 after being checked for authenticity and quality. But a bidding war started and the results were staggering. Number 5. $171 million painting. Finding lost art is honestly very commonplace in the world. But in 2014, a French auctioneer named Marc Labarbe was about to make the discovery of a lifetime. A friend of his called him about a house they owned. In the attic was a very large and very unique painting. One that had a little bit of damage and yet clearly had some worth. After taking a picture of it, he sent it to an art appraiser, Eric Turquin, in Paris to see what it was. Turquin later identified it as the lost work of the Italian master Caravaggio, Judith and Holofernes, believed to have been painted in 1607, making it a very old and very rare painting right off the bat. "This is the greatest painting I've ever found," said Turquin. "It's very violent, it's almost unbearable, but he's an artist who embodies the text. He makes the text living." If you're curious about that last part, he's referring to the Book of Judith, found in Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox versions of the Old Testament. Long story short, Judith was a widow whose city was under siege by Assyrians. To save it, she seduced the army's general and beheaded him. According to Turquin, the painting has a complicated history. Created after Caravaggio fled Rome accused of murder, it reflects the marked shift in style that the artist developed while in exile in Naples. Caravaggio was becoming darker, more somber towards the end of his life. He was getting more extreme, Turquin said. Extreme indeed, and just as extreme was the value it was appraised at, $171 million. Number 4. Martin Luther King's tapes. Martin Luther King is one of the most important people in history, not the least of which is because he was the leader of the civil rights movement, and anything associated with him is valuable. So imagine the surprise of one man when he was looking in his father's attic after putting him in a nursing home and finding an interview tape featuring Dr. Martin Luther King. It was one done for a book about nonviolence which was never finished, and was done 3 years before the legendary I Have a Dream speech. Kea Morgan, a proprietor of a Manhattan gallery that deals in historical manuscripts, photos, and other artifacts, described the tape as an extremely rare discovery. "It's like a unicorn," he said, adding he was struck by the intimate tone of the interview. "The quality is so good, so crisp that it sounds like Dr. King is sitting in my parlor having tea with me," he said. "It's an intimate, frank, low-key discussion, but he still comes through so clearly and powerfully." In the tape, King talked about the concept and importance of nonviolent protests, and asserts that sit-in demonstrations aimed at ending racial segregation in public places will ultimately be viewed as a pivotal moment for American society. When history books are written in future years, historians will have to record this movement as one of the greatest epics of our heritage, he said. "I think the movement represents struggle on the highest level of dignity and discipline." Though no clear price was given for the tape's purchase, it was believed to be between $20,000 and $60,000. Number 3. Stradivarius violin. You might not think that a musical instrument being found in an attic would be a treasure, but that's not the case at all. Especially when that instrument is a Stradivarius violin, one of the rarest instruments ever constructed, and one that is worth a literal fortune. But here's the twist. While it was found in an attic, it wasn't there originally. Rather, it had been stolen by someone in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and then stashed there, which led to a massive search for the 300-year-old violin. It was a very sophisticated operation, and one that led to 3 arrests, as it was a team effort to get the violin taken away after the Milwaukee Orchestra performed once. If you're curious as to why this was such a valuable piece, this one violin was appraised at $5 million. Number 2. Van Gogh painting. While not appreciated during his time, Vincent van Gogh is now praised as one of, if not the greatest painters to have ever lived, so having one of his works is a really big deal. Finding a lost piece of his work in an attic? Yeah, that's something truly special. The painting, Sunset at Montmajour, is the first full-size Van Gogh to emerge in 90 years. Now, when it was found, some believed it to be a fake, and it couldn't be authenticated because Van Gogh didn't sign it. But later on, new art techniques proved that it was indeed real. It was made when Van Gogh was living in Arles, in southern France. However, the notoriously self-critical artist wrote that he did not like the painting and that it was well below what I'd wish to do. As such, he did not put his signature on it. Lost no more, the piece now happily hangs with others in the Van Gogh Museum. Number 1. Money in the attic. Josh Farron had just bought a brand new house in Utah when he decided to go and explore the attic. When he did, he found himself looking at ammo boxes full of coins and cash equaling $45,000. Naturally, this would be cause for celebration and a massive spending spree, right? Except he decided to return it to the family who had the house previously. I've got 2 boys, and I teach them to be honest and do what's right, and I knew this was a teachable moment that I would never get back again, Farron of Bountiful, Utah told ABC News. So I thought we would have fun with it. We would do something courageously honest with it, something awesome. It's been a great thing for us and our kids. Well, thanks for watching. What did you think of these amazing treasures that were found in attics all over the world? Which of these items would you want to find in your attic? And do you know of any other attic treasures that were found? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to World List, and I'll see you next time on the channel.